Hello again and welcome back to the MirrorFootball podcast for another chance to debate the big stories. I'm Ian Cruz, MirrorFootball's Deputy Editor, and with me around the table to discuss this week's big events are 3pm columnist Steve Anglesey, Daily Mirror football reporter Darren Lewis, and a special guest, Sunday Mirror reporter and Arsenal fan Will Payne. And it's Arsenal where we start. They've done brilliantly to go top this week after at one point being 11 points behind Chelsea in the title race. That was a mere 6 weeks ago, but now they're sitting pretty at the top of the pile. We'll deal with their title credentials in a while, but first, the MirrorFootball website and our email system has been inundated by angry gooners, furious at the criticism being dished out to their club over William Gallas' tackle against Mark Davies last night that allegedly turned the game against Bolton. The Frenchman trod on the ankle of the Bolton midfielder, but referee Alan Wiley waved play on. Arsenal went on to score and eventually to win the game 4-2. Just one or two of the comments we received this morning. Cockney Gooner wrote that Arsenal were denied 3 clear-cut penalties over the 2 games against Bolton, so he believes justice was rightly served. CO Gooner, on the other hand, believes Bolton had 3 opportunities to clear the ball between the tackle by Gallas on Davis, and they've only got themselves to blame for the fact they let the goal in. And the Enlightener takes a contrary view to that, however. He believes it was thuggery, nothing less. Bolton manager Owen Coyle described the challenge as assault. So, Steve, Alan Wiley, referee, right or wrong?
Well, Alan Wiley was wrong not to blow up for a foul, because it is a foul and it's quite a bad foul. If you look at it again, you can see that Gallas is making no attempt to look down at the ball. He goes over the top of Davis, and it does look worse when you see it in slow motion. But were Arsenal right to carry on playing? Yes, they were right. It's up to the referee to stop the game, and Arsenal have been nearly been punished like this before in a recent Everton game, and are clearly wise to the event. So, you know, wrong on the foul. Maybe wrong to not blow up, but I don't think Arsenal can be blamed as a team, although Gallas can be blamed as an individual.
As you say, Steve, it's down to the referee to stop play. We've had this instance with players kicking the ball out of play and then the fella gets up like a spring chicken. Darren, you were at the game last night. You can gauge the reaction of the crowd and the players themselves. Should Arsenal stop play?
I think they should have stopped play. I mean, basically, the player goes down after he's challenged by William Gallas. He's quite clearly in agony. And there are Bolton fans indicating to Alan Wiley that Mark Davies is in agony. And yet, basically, Arsenal go on to score. There's been all sorts of arguments about the ball hit 4, 5, 6, 7 players before it got to Fabregas, and then Fabregas put it in. That's not the point. Play should have been stopped because there was an injured player. The rule, apparently, that so many people have been emailing us at MirrorFootball to say is that it's a head injury. That's the only circumstances in which play should be stopped. That's not good enough. When you've got to use common sense. When you see a player on the floor, injured, clutching his legs, screaming out in pain, having been challenged over the top by Gallas, you have to stop play. To do anything else is unacceptable.
Darren, I'll give you 2 words. Didier Drogba.
Well, yes, but you can't judge everybody by that standard.
No,
first
you can't.
of all.
But this is why.
Second of all, Alan Wiley. If you listen to the commentary of the actual incident, I think it's Tony Gale commentating for Sky Sports. Immediately he says, how does Alan Wiley not see that? Owen Cole's at the touchline and he sees it. Arsene Wenger, who always says he doesn't see it, admitted last night he'd seen it because it was so bad. Alan Wiley is right on top of the situation and says he felt it was a coming together. It's a scandal that nothing is going to be done about it because Alan Wiley says that nothing should be.
Well, the rules were changed, so the referee is responsible for stopping play to prevent players feigning injury, breaking up the play and gaining their team an advantage. Will, you're an Arsenal fan. What did you make of last night's incident?
I just don't understand, having heard what Darren just said, why Arsenal are being criticised for this. You've said it a couple of times there. Wiley should have stopped play. Yes, it was a foul. Yes. If he feels that, I mean, ultimately the rule is a head injury, but if he feels that the player is in agony, why doesn't he blow up? You know, it's not Arsenal's responsibility to be looking around all the time, checking on other players.
No, it isn't.
Win the game.
But as Owen Cole often says, and he said in the press conference yesterday, Arsenal are this team supposedly that build their values on fair play. They're supposed to be this team of guys who always play, you know, who play with compassion, shall we say. And yet they see a guy on the floor in obvious injury and they don't care about that. The fans willing the players to go on and score do not give a whatever about Mark Davis on the floor. They want him to score.
The fans can't see how bad the player.
Of course they are.
They've been wasting time all game. And to be fair, we just said there about what Coyle said about Arsenal as a football club. How many other Bolton managers and Bolton players, Kevin Davis included, have accused Arsenal of being wimps, and they said that we scream
But
every
see,
time
this
we
is
tackle.
this
So,
is
you know,
this is the thing that everyone keeps saying. This is the thing
saying.
everyone keeps emailing MirrorFootball and saying we've been bullied by Arsenal. We've been bullied. We're pushed around by Arsenal. It's almost as if like they've got a vendetta against Arsenal, and they're using last night as almost as a catharsis. Really, we were right to ignore the injured player because they've left so many of our injured players.
It's Wiley was at fault. It was a foul. Guaranteed, 100%. It was a foul. Intent, I would suggest no intent there because Gallas isn't a filthy player. He's not a dirty player. And I think quite a big accusation to say he meant to hurt.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he meant to do it.
But Wiley is there to referee the game. It's not the rule was brought in to stop time wasting, to stop players. It was a specific rule saying you shouldn't kick the ball out.
But
So
my argument, we keep using this word time wasted. He quite clearly wasn't wasting time. When the Arsenal players see that he's injured, it's there. Surely, as a player yourself, and Arsenal have had their fair share of injuries. Abu Diaby, Eduardo. It's on Arsenal to basically say this guy looks quite badly injured. Let's get the ball out.
To be fair to the Arsenal players, they were quite in advance of the situation, weren't they? They were then around the Bolton penalty area to the right-hand side of the penalty area, and whereas Davis was around sort of midway between the penalty area and the halfway
Bolton
line.
players were indicating to the Arsenal players that there was a man down and he was quite badly injured.
Much as but as they would really though, to try and if they were trying to gain an advantage. What interests me is what the not only did Arsene see the incident, but he clearly heard the incident as well because he's had to apologise for the catcalling. Were you among the catcallers?
No, I wasn't. And to be fair, that's the one thing in this incident that I would say was wrong. I was there. I turned around to the person I was with and said the bloke should be getting booed. He's obviously hurt. The one thing I'm not trying to excuse it in any way. The one thing I would say, just put some context into it, was Bolton players have been winding up the Arsenal fans all night.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
I'm just saying, just to put it in context. I'm not defending.
But there's no context for it though. There's a context. Are you telling me there is a context for when you put an injured player on a stretcher and you're carrying him off the pitch to cheer?
I just said I'm not trying to defend it.
That just goes beyond all compassion.
I said I'm not trying to defend it. I just said that to put it in some context. Bolton, it was a very highly charged atmosphere for various reasons. We were going to go top of the league if we won. We were 2-0 down. Fans got a bit carried away and they shouldn't have done it. But yeah, just to put it in some context, Bolton players were purposefully winding up Arsenal fans for no real reason.
I did not see a single player.
Matt Taylor run in front of the Arsenal fans when he scored a penalty.
He celebrated a goal. Matt Taylor celebrates the goal, and he did what any other footballer would do. He ran to the touchline, he punched the air. I saw myself. There were Arsenal fans, just like when Adebayor scored at Manchester City, and he scores. He kneels down in front of the fans. Well, how is that different to what Carlos Tevez did in front of the Man United fans the other night? And yet everyone calls it.
Carlos Tevez, I could express that later. But
well, we'll get to that in a sec. But
James, we have to stop you there. The bottom line here is that we're going to have to agree to disagree on that specific incident. We talked about Arsenal in the title race at the top of the programme. They did go top of the league last night. Will, do you think your boys can go on and win it?
I don't think we will, no. I think the problem is Arsene Wenger has absolute faith in his players. Because we're top of the league, that will compound that faith. That will, give him validity to that. What Wenger should be thinking is, we're in a wonderful position here. If we just make a couple of additions to our squad, we can win the league. Man United, not the team they were. Chelsea stagnated. Obviously, Liverpool dropped off. We could win this league quite comfortably if we added maybe one striker and maybe a midfielder or maybe a goalkeeper. We need a couple of players. I don't think we'll win the league because we haven't got the depth in our squad.
Darren, you watch Arsenal regularly, but you're obviously a little more impartial than Will. What do you think?
Well, I think they can win the league, actually. I'd say that they have players who you would argue are more influential than others. But if you look at Aaron Ramsey, for example, when he came in and stood in for Cesc Fabregas and he did it seamlessly, holds the ball up well, scores goals, got good distribution. And I just think that Arsenal perhaps have a better squad, more of a squad than Manchester United. Chelsea, I think, if anyone is going to beat Arsenal to the title, they're going to be the ones because they've got Drogba scoring goals regularly. They've coped, obviously, very well with the players being away at the African Nations Cup, scored 7 against Sunderland. And they've got Lampard now starting to score goals. Normally he gets around 20 a season. He's only got, I think, around about 8 or 9 so far.
But he's picking up, isn't he? He's beginning to pick up. Yeah, I really think the thing about, the next 4 games are going to define them, aren't they? The next 4 league games they've got more or less everybody, haven't they? They've got United at home.
Yeah.
And can they win the title? Yes, they can win it in a season when there are more than 4 teams involved now. I only think the champions are going to come from one of 2 clubs, but certainly there are 6 or 7 teams there that can all beat each other.
It's funny, isn't it? Because your City side, everyone knows you support City. I thought that they were going to be in the title race as well, but then last week they lost against Everton. They looked to have nothing there.
Yeah, they go away to Spurs and they lose badly. They go with Mark Hughes. They go away to Everton with Roberto Mancini and look badly. And they really are. I mean, they've got some serious deficits despite the large amount of outlay. They need strengthening in midfield, at the back, and up front.
Away from the Premier League though, you touched on Manchester City there. It's been a good week for City in the Carling Cup. Not a great week for Manchester United, beaten by their main City rivals in that competition. And figures later revealed that they are in excess of £700 million in debt now. And they are clearly the dominant force in the Premier League and have been since its inception 15, 16 years ago. But what does that debt mean for the future, Darren?
Well, many people think that in terms of Sir Alex Ferguson, there's been some calls this week for him to walk away from the club, resign in protest of what the Glazers are doing. I don't think now would be the right time for him to do it. If he was going to do it, he should have done it some time ago. But I do think maybe he might see himself as having taken the club as far as he can go if it means that he's not going to be able to reinforce United in a transfer market. And let's be honest, if they've got debts of around over £700 million, then quite clearly there's not really going to be that much money for him to be able to reinforce United. Obviously, when United come looking for players, you get a few extra million on the valuation. So I think it could be quite bad news for United unless they can develop players from inside the club.
And Steve, you must be laughing. I mean, City are now the richest club in the world, and the next door neighbours are going around a begging bowl trying to raise 500 million in bonds. We understand the Glazers have got that plan. Is this the start of the power shift in Manchester?
Well, as much as I would love to think so, Manchester United are an enormous global brand, and that has got to be of some value to somebody, despite the appalling amount of debt that the Glazers have loaded on the club, and the large amount of money that they appear to be taking out of the club. I've got not a lot of sympathy for Manchester United fans in general. I've got enormous sympathy for them over this.
Why haven't you got sympathy for Man United fans?
Because I'm a Manchester City fan and I've grown up disliking Manchester United fans.
But I just would have thought as a football fan.
But as a football fan and a Mancunian, I've got enormous amount of sympathy for this, because the club should never have been sold to somebody that had to then had to take out loans against the club even to buy it. And Liverpool, another great club, are in exactly the same situation. And this should never have been allowed to happen by the people who passed these ownership things as fit and proper. So that's one thing, But going back to what I was saying before, Manchester United is such a powerful brand in a way that Manchester City still aren't, and probably never will be, even if they won the next 10 Premier Leagues and the next 9 Champions Leagues. And someone somewhere will come in for them and try and sort this out. And I think it's very interesting that before they went to the Middle East on their little training break, they were due to go to Portugal, and they ended up, where did they end up? Going to Qatar or yeah, that's right. They went there and they met some of the local royals were there and whatever. And I just wonder whether that could be something that progresses.
Will, we've seen Fergie overcome adversity before to succeed, but I mean, if his hands are tied in the transfer market by this debt, can you see them maintaining their spot, or is there a danger that they might start to slip behind the leading pack, a bit like Liverpool have done this season?
Well, there is a danger, but I think the thing you can't lose sight of is Man United, since the Glazers have taken over, won the league the last 3 times, won the Champions League. I think Man United fans whinging about how badly, bad life is for them should really think actually and be relatively grateful for the success they've had.
I think you're unfair to Man United fans, only because they've not whinged. They've gone and set up FC United. They've stuck by their principles. They've stopped giving money to the Glazers. They've put their money where their mouth is, pretty much. And I think as far as the Manchester United fans are concerned, they've continued protesting and not being seduced by the success of the club on the pitch.
But all I'm saying is that, you know, life hasn't been that hard for them recently. They've won a lot. They're still very successful. They haven't got much money in the transfer market. This seems to be a very recent thing that they haven't got any money, because they spent £30 million on Berbatov last year. You know,
Yeah,
they've throughout Fergie's reign, they've had lots and lots of money to spend, and until this year, under the Glazers, they've had lots and lots of money to spend. So until it actually starts really going to the wall, I won't believe that it ever will, because as Steve said, Man United are too big for that to happen, I think.
It really has started to bite for them this season, though, hasn't it? I mean, I think you can see that the Ronaldo money is not going to be forthcoming, despite what Sir Alex Ferguson has said about it. And the fact is that they've sold one of their best players to us purely because they couldn't countenance paying £33 million for somebody who Sir Alex Ferguson saw effectively as a substitute. Now, a couple of years ago, that would have been waved off with absolutely no trouble. And in so it's happened that he's now banging in 16, 17 goals for Manchester City, and long may it continue.
Well, time will tell what the future holds for Manchester United. We can all agree, lively debate as always. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. A fascinating week off the pitch and a thrilling week on it, with a couple of great Premier League games and some fantastic Carling Cup semi-finals, both in Manchester and in the Midlands. Steve, you alluded to Carlos Tevez's move across Manchester there, which brings us neatly to our final point this week, which is we want your nominated heroes and villains of the week, something we'll be asking each of our guests in the future. Steve, let's start with you as a City fan. Give us your hero and villain of this week.
Well, slightly controversially, I would say that my hero of the week was Shay Given for his performance in the last 15 minutes of a game on Tuesday night, which, to be fair, apart from the first 20 minutes, Manchester City really did dominate and deserved to win by more than 2-1. But I thought Shay Given was absolutely outstanding. He's certainly been the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. Arsenal will be a lot further on if they had Shay Given. I think so would Chelsea, and possibly United, although now Van der Sar's back. Villain of the week, there can only be one man. The man with the least convincing moustache in football, obviously, Gary Neville.
Will?
Well, I mean, massive bias on my part when I say Fabregas, just because his arrival back in the Arsenal side has heralded our sort of recent upturning form. I think he seems to be on a one-man mission to win us the league this year. Whether that's because he wants to go next year, I don't know, but he is undoubtedly the best midfielder in the Premiership at the moment. Goal scoring, creativity. He bosses midfields now, which he never used to. He grabs hold of a game by the scruff of the neck and is so influential, worryingly so to an extent. If we were without him, then we're not anywhere near the side that we are with him. And slightly to just be again controversial, I'm going to say Tevez is my villain of the week, just because I don't appreciate his reaction to the Man United fans. I don't like Man United, far be it for me to defend them normally, but he was treated very well by the Man United fans. They loved him to pieces. And I think he's a bit of a mercenary.
I think the reaction of his celebration was more aimed at Messrs Neville and Ferguson.
Well,
for some
maybe
of the comments,
we should maybe have some respect for them, because their hands were tied. I did particularly dislike Gary Neville, but I think he ran in front of the Man United fans. I think he did it to anger them, and I don't really agree with that, considering he was a hero there throughout his time there, and they desperately wanted him to stay.
That's fair enough. And finally, Darren, we know you like to have the last word, so please do so.
Well, my hero of the week is Carlos Tevez, just because I don't like Will. No, really. Because I think he wanted to have a big impact on the game and to show United what they'd been missing, and he managed to do exactly that. And I think City's up front, certainly when Bajani came on to replace him, it was like chalk and cheese. It didn't have his industry, didn't have his work rate, didn't have his presence in front of goal.
He was like the anti-Tevez, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
It was incredible. He was strolled around to no effect whatsoever.
Ball goes off 30 yards away, we'll let wait.
And you would have thought that you would have thought that the only reason he's playing in the absence of Adebayor and Santa Cruz is so they can put him in the shop window. And what a terrible advertisement for himself it really was for the strolling Zimbabwean.
Absolutely.
Parallels you could draw between him and Rooney in a way. Tevez and Rooney in terms of their work rate.
Exactly.
So
it was just absolutely phenomenal. I think if there was a fantastic example of what United were missing, it was in that match. But as for the villain of the week, it's got to only be one man. That's Alan Wiley. because I think when he looks back at his performance last night, he'll realise that he really should have one less sausage with his breakfast every day.
Well, Alex Ferguson suggested he was too fat to referee, or not fit enough to referee, and it seems like resident marathon runner to my right is joining in that. Sorry, obviously none of you can see that he's on my right, but not to worry. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Will, Steve, Darren, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for taking part today. That's it for the Mirror Football podcast for this week. We'll be back again at the same time next week. In the meantime, don't forget to log on to mirrorfootball.co.uk for the latest news and opinions, and please leave us your views.